My name's Larry Tubb. I've been involved in CHAPS for about 6 years now with my partner in crime, Jenny Hickman. And we are very close to going public with the results from our 2012 CHAPS survey. And so one of the things I want to make sure that we are mindful of and that we do is that we let you know what's sort of coming down the pike when we go public on October 9th, because I don't want you to be in the grocery store and somebody see your Cook Children's t-shirt and they come up and say, boy, I just heard this really great thing in the internet, and you're going, well, I don't know, what are you talking about? So at least this is an opportunity for you to get an idea of what we're going to be talking about with our community on October 9th. So with that, and mindful of everyone's time, let's just jump right in. So quickly, I'm going to give a brief background because I'm going to assume you know mostly about CHAPS. We are a vertically integrated healthcare delivery network with all these various companies involved in that enterprise. And that's all complicated and complex. Why would we do something like that? Well, the original intent was to create a medical home across the continuum of care. So that it didn't really matter where a child encountered us or what their medical need was, Cook Children's would be there for them. And they could be part of the Cook Children's family. So whether we're being cared for at home or with a primary care physician or a specialist or an inpatient stay and then discharged home, Cook would be able to provide that service. And we've been very successful in that. So successful, in fact, that when we merged our mission and vision, we added a couple of things. And the two important differences, and I hope by now you know the promise, the two things that were strikingly different was improve the health of every child in our region. So it wasn't just about providing medical care, it's actually improving the health of children who don't even show up at our facilities. And through the prevention is the other operative word. So when we first realized what that meant, we realized, well, we don't know how to define health very well. We know how to define illness, we know how to define disease in children, but we don't really have good descriptions for how do you define how well a child is or how healthy they are. And that's what prompted us to do the first survey, the parent survey. Still, to my knowledge, one of a kind, but we're now 3 years later, and we've repeated that. And the reason is, when we presented that, we took it to our Board of Trustees, and they said, well, there's 6 or 7 things we think we can make a difference in, we Cook Children's, if we just work on it. So these are the priorities that our board set for us. And from that, they also made 3 additional commitments back to the community. One was to share the information. We know we can't do this by ourselves, so we have to be able to engage our entire community in these efforts to improve kids' health. One way to do that is help the community understand what the problems are by providing the data that helps define the information. Secondly is to continue to research that information and that data. It can't just be a bunch of numbers sitting in 3-ring binders sitting on a shelf somewhere that nobody looks at. If we don't use it, we just wasted everybody's time, including our parents and families that voluntarily gave us information about their kids. And then at the end of that retreat, and somewhat of a surprise to me, there was also several of the board members that said this cannot be a one-time thing. You have to create something that will assure us that this is going to be sustainable over time. So we're going to talk about the Center for Children's Health. So that's the 3 commitments our board made to the community at that very first retreat. So since our last summit, okay, we now have the Center for Children's Health. Our goal is to oversee CHAPS, to do community research and health outreach. Sounds very close to meeting the commitments our board set for the community. And to do that, we're going to affect public policy, facilitate collaborations. We're going to be good stewards of the data and sustain that. We're going to make sure we use evidence-based plans with measurable results. And the real issue for us in the center is to always constantly engage a larger community in the discussion about children's health. Again, these issues are so large, one organization or even 2 or 3 by themselves can't solve these issues alone. So it's going to take all of us working together. So I'm proud to be the executive director for the center, in addition to being the vice president for system planning. We're very fortunate to have recruited Jackie Meeks from John Peter Smith recently. Jackie's right down here. She's the lady that's going to be responsible for helping us conduct our community health research and working with the CHAPS data. She's now getting really familiar with the CHAPS data, both 2008, 2012, and she's also working on a research plan. So hopefully we'll be able to share that in a few months. Jenny, who's been my partner in crime for a number of years as we've worked on this, is in addition to being our Assistant Vice President for Community Health Outreach, is also the Outreach Director for the Center. And then just recently we added Jose Gonzalez as our Medical Director. Dr. Gonzalez is a wonderful find for us because he's the Medical Director for the health plan. And the health plan manages population health, particularly in this case, the population of kids that are Medicaid and CHIP beneficiaries. So he's a perfect fit. He already knows the issues that we're facing as we go beyond just that population into the broader community of children. And then I'm most grateful for our advisory groups. We have an internal team that meets nearly every week as we work our way through these issues and try to figure out what we need to be doing and keep the standards high. And we, in the very near future, will be putting together a community advisory board that will probably meet quarterly to help us advise us on things, issues as they affect the community. So that's our little work group. And what we're really about now is moving outside the practice of medicine and medical care and into creating a health home for all kids in the community and across the continuum of health and well-being for children. So it's quite a noble undertaking, and our board has been very supportive and eager for us to begin this journey. So I know some of you have heard me use this analogy, and I know Mr. Merrill uses it. I shamelessly cribbed it from him. But providing health care or medical care is a lot like sitting by a river and seeing kids float by that are in trouble. And you jump in and rescue them, and you resuscitate them, and you put them in the hospital, and they recover, and then you send them home. Well, the game changer is CHAPS and the collaborations and you all working together to go upstream and figure out why those kids are falling in the river to begin with and stopping that. And having the data and the definition and the community all working together is what's going to make the difference and allow us to do that. So also, in that same vein, we know we can't do it by ourselves. So another big focus is our infrastructure that we use for collaboration. And I'm going to ask Jenny to come up and explain that briefly because she is our expert in building community collaborations.
We do know that when you want to engage the community in taking action on a specific health issue, one of your best strategies is working collaboratively as a team. We typically call those collaborations coalitions. And one of the values of working at that collaborative level on a coalition structure is that you're bringing together a diverse group of people representing a wide range of organizations. They have their own perspective. They bring resources to the table. And putting all that together, you come out with a better product, and you're able to leverage the work that each other does as you're really focused on being a team. There are some challenges sometimes to teamwork. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. But when we collaborate, sometimes we have different ideas about how to do that and what will work. Because coalitions are used a lot in community-based health work, principles have evolved over time about how best to work with coalitions so that they can be effective. And so we follow a format that has been developed by a group called Coalitions Work, Dr. Francis Butterfoss, who's going to be our keynote speaker at the October 9th summit. And these are some of the principles for working effectively with coalitions at the community level. And as Larry said, this is the infrastructure for developing collaborative processes. Another way of describing that is the organizational framework. What is the operating system for working at the coalition level? You really have to have this in place in order to be able to work together cohesively and strategically. So this is just a slide to show you some of the, I would say, more mundane and tedious elements that are involved in developing that infrastructure for coalitions. But we've just learned over time that you kind of have to have the rules of the road set out for everybody. And once you've done that piece, then you can really get busy with the action plans, the initiatives, the interventions that you're going to do collectively as a group. So this is what's been happening in our new county collaborations during the past time since we did our last CHAPS data. So I said this morning, this is what I call the ta-da slide, because this shows what's happened as a result of all that hard work and the many hours of behind-the-scenes work. And as you can see, we now have coalitions in every county in our region. And those coalitions have chosen a focus area that was based on the CHAPS data. We drilled down to see what was most significant for their county, and they chose what they wanted to work on, which is really important for community engagement. So you can see those areas that Larry highlighted earlier, the 6 or 7 areas that Cook Children's was going to focus on. These are some of the same areas. We have 2 groups working on child abuse prevention. We have 2 counties working on childhood obesity. We have 1 county focused on mental health. And you see in Tarrant County several collaborations there. We have even more, but Tarrant County has been doing this kind of collaborative work for a long time. Cook Children's has led some of that collaborative work over the years. We started the Safe Kids Coalition several years ago, our work around children's oral health, and then partner with a lot of organizations on other health issues. But whether we did it years ago or recently, those are the same processes that are involved in bringing collaborations together. We know that there are many employees at Cook Children's who don't live in Tarrant County and that live in the surrounding counties. So this sneak peek is a great opportunity if you don't live in Tarrant County to learn about some of the new work that's going on in your community around a specific issue. And if you live in Tarrant County, you may not know some of these other things that are happening here. So I invite you, if you're interested, to let us know. We would love for you to join us and be part of these collaborations.
So let's start off by comparing the surveys between the 2 years. You can see that in 2008, we fielded about 20,000 surveys, 23,000 in 2012. The reason we did that is because we learned that people want information about what's going on in their community. It's nice to know what's happening in the 6 counties or at the county level, but at the end of the day, I really want to know what's happening in my community. So we actually increased the number of surveys so we could get a few more cities added into our array of cities that were available, that people could look at information specific to where they live. There are 2 versions. The reason is there are almost 200 questions we ask. So that's quite a burden to have to wade through 200 questions. So there are 2 versions. In each version, about half of the survey are the same questions in each version, and the other half, they're different. That's why you'll see different numbers throughout the presentation for the sample size, which is denoted by N. And you can see that the first year we had 7,400, and this year we had almost 8,400 return. Return rates very similar, and about half were by mail and half by phone in both years. A few brave souls actually completed the survey on the internet. Now, I don't know about you, but when I do an internet survey, I get about page 3 and I'm done. If the survey's over or not, I'm not too interested. I'm finished. So those are really brave people. And then, because I am a data geek, I'm required to tell you that the precision on the survey is plus or minus 1% at the 95% confidence limit. And if it's just one of the versions, it's 1.5 plus or minus 1.5%. Now, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to tell you that which ones are significant and which ones aren't as we go through this. But I got to say that, or they won't let me go to the meetings, okay? So, we have about the same number of boys and girls between the 2 surveys. We have essentially the same distribution among races and ethnicities. The numbers in parentheses at the end of each title is from the 2012 updated census information for the 6 counties. And so you may have already noticed that the African American population is 11.3 in the population, but it's only got a 6.6 response rate. And Caucasians represent about 57% and had a 65% response rate. So a couple of factors that we do know affects that. Number one is the minorities have a tendency to respond at a lower frequency, okay? So we've got that pretty well established. But we also created this problem because when we expanded the number of surveys that we expanded into were areas outside of 820. And guess what? The ethnic and racial distribution outside of 820 is almost predominantly white or Caucasian. So it kind of skews the numbers. Our experts tell us it doesn't skew or bias the data, that this is expected, and the fact that it matches our 2008 data, it makes it okay. So I already looked at that and panicked and said, oh gosh, what are we doing? But it turns out it's all right. The other thing of interest is we asked the survey, particularly by phone, in the language of mutual convenience. And so while 20% of the respondents were Hispanic, about 11% actually needed the survey in Spanish. So a lot of the Hispanic households actually speak English. And then the comparison by age of the child that was being where the survey was completed on are identical, and I'll explain later why, because there's a very good reason for it. Two questions we asked that we had not asked before, because it really hadn't come up. First is, did you answer the CHAPS 2008 survey? It turns out about 15.7% of the people that answered 2012 also answered in 2008. So that's kind of good. We know we've got several mixed samples going. The other thing is that we always hear about turnover. It's interesting to see that more than 50% of the respondents in 2012 have been here 6 to 15 years. So a fairly stable base of population, which is a good thing when you're trying to do population comparisons over time. And where do these kids live? Well, each dot represents a respondent to our survey, and it pretty closely matches up with the population distribution, which we'll show in a minute in several different ways. So what's the first thing that strikes you when you look at the data? There's a couple of things that jump out that I want to start with. First of all, this is the population by county in 2008, okay? And here's the population in 2012. You'll note Denton grew 26.3% in kids 0 to 14 in 4 years. Johnson, 19. Parker over here at 14. Hood at 12. Tarrant at 9. Wise at 8. It's no secret that this is one of the fastest growing areas anywhere in our nation. 13.2% growth in the 0 to 14 population age group in 4 years. And the current forecast for just a 5-year forecast for 2017, it's right there, more than 750,000 children. By 2020, it'll be 1 million children aged 0 to 14. Those are the kids that are going to be impacted by what we do over the next 8 years. So we asked the question, in general, how would you describe your child's health? So parents that said excellent or very good, in 2008, notice 3 counties were above the national average, 3 counties were below the national average. In 2012, all the counties were above the national average. In every case, they moved up. So the little green arrow, it says it's an improvement, and it's up. Another question was, how easy is it for you to access different types of health in your community? In every case, it went up. Astoundingly so in mental health care. The parents seemed to think it was much easier to access mental health care in 2012 than it was in 2008. Third, how familiar are you with types of services or programs? And again, in every case, upward trends, consistently across all of those. And this is more a measure of health literacy. What do I know about health in my community, and what do I understand about it? So let me stop and tell you, this is descriptive data, and it really is, and I'll say this several times, but it really is intended to define the problem. And when you use descriptive data, it often creates more questions than it answers. Its value, however, is in helping you define what questions you need to be asking and where you need to go look. So when you don't have a definition for what constitutes children's health, this becomes your framework for how you begin to make that definition and where you can go to learn more information or dig into it. Having said that, it would be pretty dishonest of me if I didn't at least not dodge the question about why did all of these go up, okay? So I can't prove anything, but we have a hypothesis. One thing is it could be artifact. There is a phenomenon called the Hawthorne effect. It's well documented, well researched. And basically it says if you interact with any group of people, that interaction is going to change how they behave. So the fact that you ask a question about health is going to change how they respond. Okay? Now, if you're hardcore scientists, you might know that same principle is the Heisenberg principle of uncertainty. Some of you might know it under chaos theory, but don't worry about it. It's just we recognize that artifact is present. It was also present in the first survey. So it could be artifact. Let's just be open and honest about that. However, when you look at individual questions, like how often do you talk to your child about healthy eating habits, And the parents that say we talk about healthy eating habits on a daily basis, in 2008 it was 31% of the parents, and in 2012 it's 45%. That 15 percentage point jump in 3 years begins to suggest that maybe what we're seeing is the effect of awareness. We know, at least initially, increased awareness acts as an improvement, okay? So it may very well be that's what we're seeing. Now, I would love, in fact, I'm going to say that CHAPS is at least partially responsible for that increased awareness, okay? And take some credit for that. Now, in fairness, there's this woman who seems to be married to our president who's been out doing some things, so I know she's been helpful, and there's lots of groups out there working about health. In fact, the good news is you can hardly go in any direction today without hearing some message about health, wellness, and well-being, and that's a good thing. So I think that is what we may be seeing here. The danger in recognizing that, however, is awareness can be fleeting. We don't know what the next big issue might be that might detract our attention away from children's health. So part of our job, and people in this room, is to make sure that whatever it is that comes up doesn't detract people's attention, that they stay focused on what's important, children's health. So let's talk about some of the issues. This is a slide we used in 2008. We said 18% of our population, or about 111,000 children, had or been diagnosed with asthma at some point in their life. And boys and African American children were at greatest risk. Since 2008, the North Texas Asthma Consortium has been operating Camp Bronco, which is a joint effort between Dallas Children's and our, who do we work for? Oh, Cook Children's. And it's an outdoor camp for kids who have asthma. They also do a flag program that lets free flags to elementary schools. They fly air quality flags so that when you come to school, you know what the air quality is that day. More importantly, there's a manual that goes along with that that offers alternative activities for when it's a bad air day. So what can you do to stay active and be inside and outside of the bad air? Keller ISD is a nationally recognized award winner for managing asthma in schools. During the recent budget transactions with our legislature a couple of years ago, that kind of got knocked off its rails. They have now put the team back together, and they're up and running again, and they're in the process of raising the bar one more time on how you can control asthma in schools. So we're grateful for those folks helping out with this. Again, we can't do it by ourselves. So what's changed? Well, lifetime asthma was 18.2 in 2008, 16.6. So it went down, and that's a good thing. Unfortunately, it didn't go down as far as the population grew up. So we started with 111,000 children, and now we have 115,000. The point here is looking at percentages, and only at percentages, is dangerous. You also have to look at the underlying raw number to figure out what really happened. Boys at greater risk, their risk actually declined from 2008 to 2012, and African American children's risk actually increased slightly. Again, we're not exactly sure what that means. It's descriptive data, but it does tell us we should be looking at this and finding out what's going on. 2008, we put up this slide and said, well, what age was your child diagnosed with asthma? We put up the state data, the national data, and we said, look, this is statistically different. Something is going on in our region that's not happening elsewhere. 2012, with the exception of it didn't peak in these 4 years, guess what? It's a steady upward trend for increasing incidence of asthma the older the child is. So the longer you live as a child in our area, the greater the likelihood of you contracting asthma. This is the population distribution in 2008 of the kids that had asthma. And here's what happened in 2012. Went down, down, stayed the same, down, stayed the same. But Wise County went up slightly. So now we need to go find out what happened in Wise County that made that different, or what happened in our environment that made that different. So again, we jumped from 111 to 115. There's some questions that we didn't ask in the first surveys, though we corrected that when we went back in 2012, and so let's see if we can fix some of that. So another way of looking at asthma is, do you currently have asthma? So there's lifetime asthma is used as a measure, but also, do you currently have asthma? So 16.6 had been told at some point they had asthma. 11% actually currently have asthma. Of that 11% of our population, 2/3 have an individualized asthma action plan. So for those of you that don't know, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is we don't know what causes asthma. We don't have a clue. So as a result, we don't know how to cure it. But what we do know is it's eminently controllable. There's no reason you can't live a full, productive, unhampered life if you maintain control of your asthma. So that individualized asthma action plan is the absolute critical element for controlling asthma. How do you know if it's in control? Well, there's something called the rule of twos. Do you use your inhaler more than twice a week? Whoops, 18% seem to be, they could be out of control. You have night symptoms of asthma more than twice a month. 12% could be same group of kids. You refill your inhaler more than twice a year. A third of our kids that currently have asthma are refilling their asthma inhaler too frequently. We don't know why. It's only descriptive data, but that just begs to be looked into and find out what's going on there. And then 16% of children with asthma showed up in the ED. Now, occasionally it is appropriate to be in the ED, but mostly it's controllable. You shouldn't have to be in an ED. Okay? So let's change topics. Let's move on to childhood obesity. And obesity is not even the right word. We've come to learn over the last 3 years, first of all, obesity is sort of offensive. Nobody wants to have the conversation with mom and dad, hey, your kid's fat. Okay? I don't want to have that conversation with a parent. Physicians don't want to have that conversation with the parent. And that's not even the key issue. The key issue is weight management, activity, nutrition, and a third component, cardiac risk. The American Academy of Pediatrics last fall came out with a set of standards of how to assess a child for cardiac risk, and if they have a familial history, as young as age 2 to start that screening process. Okay? So it's not about obesity. You know, we just use that because it's convenient for some people, but it's not the right word. So we need to learn how to get away from that word. 15.5% of the parents said they didn't think their child ate healthy meals. 31% of children were classed as overweight or obese based on their BMI. And the scary one for me was at age 2, 30% of the kids were already overweight or obese. Age 2. That's the earliest you can measure BMI. 2008, since then, Johnson County is supporting the CATCH program, which is a nutrition-based healthy choices decision based on slow, go, and low. So go foods are things that you can eat could and should eat every day. Slow foods are things that maybe you could have a serving once a week. That would be fine. And the woe foods are kind of things that, well, maybe if you really got it, maybe once a month is okay, but you probably really shouldn't. But if you really need to, it's okay. That slice of pizza once a month probably ain't going to kill you. Just don't have it every day. Pizza is my weakness. Parker County is promoting 5210, let's go. 5210, go. We'll get that right. 5 fruits or vegetables. Let me challenge this. If you're not eating 5 servings of fruits or vegetables each day, try it. And you'll suddenly discover how difficult that is. 2 hours or less of recreational screen time, 1 hour of physical activity, and 0 sugary drinks. Okay? 5210. So in 2008, 31, 35, no change. Oops, if there's no change in the percentage and the population grew, guess what? 192,000 kids, 219,000 kids. Overweight, obese at age 2, good news, that went down. Not sure why. Needs to be investigated, though. That's pretty encouraging. How many kids eat healthy meals? Parents say their kids are eating a little more healthy, and kids are saying their kids are outside 30 minutes or more every day, 7 days a week, by 15 percentage points. That's awesome. Okay? This is the flip side of that. This is saying, do you believe your child eats healthy meals? And the parent said no. This is what we showed in 2008. And look, it's almost identical. Now, from a statistician's viewpoint, this is awesome. I know it's meaningless to you, but this is awesome. We did a random survey 3 years ago, collected data, and plotted a graph, and when 3 years later we came back, asked the same question, collected some more data, and it's actually kind of the same. okay? Because when you run a risk with population surveys, that doesn't always have to be the case. So what this is, because we can't validate the survey instrument, because we're only using it once every 3 years, validation in the statistical sense becomes really hard. This is a great leading indicator that what we're doing is valid. So I get excited when I see things like this where the data is replicable over time. I'm sorry, data geek, sorry. Okay, this is just kids who have been classified as obese based on their BMI. So this was the 2008 population percentage and population affected, and here's what happened in 2012. Everybody went down or stayed the same except Johnson. And again, we've already covered that that's actually gone up. Questions we didn't ask in 2008 we should have. Servings of vegetables or servings of fruit. 13% of the parents said their kids got no vegetables the prior day, and almost 11.5% no fruit. Now, that normally wouldn't surprise me, except the survey was actually conducted during the beginning of the school year. So the large percentage of kids that are on school programs, I know got fruits and vegetables the prior day. So unless everybody who filled out the survey filled it out on a Sunday or a Monday, which I know that didn't happen, this is bothersome, okay? And so we're talking about 80 to 90,000 kids. Another one that we didn't think to ask in 2008 was brought to our attention by the Tarrant Food Bank when we showed them the 2008 numbers. And they said, yeah, but what about hunger? Well, we didn't even think to ask that. So we asked it this time. The question was, how many days in the past month has your child gone to bed hungry because you didn't have enough food in the house? So it's a food security issue. And you can see what it looks like. The scary thing is 10 times in a month is every third day the child went to bed hungry. 12 days is almost every other day. And even though 0.02% doesn't sound like a lot, that's 280 kids. In aggregate, 0.4% went to bed hungry at least one day during the month. That's 2,500 kids. 2,500 kids in the fastest growing area in our country and arguably one of the most prosperous. It's not a third world country. Something's wrong. Now, I make it no secret I'm a data geek, so a friend of mine, who's also a great friend of CHAPS, was on vacation this summer and he saw this sign. He said, immediately I thought of you. I had to take this and send it to you because this is a great use of data, okay? You can't read it. It says it's at a bike shop in Telluride. In 1964, 50% of the kids rode to school on a bike, and the obesity rate was 12%. In 2004, 3% rode to school on their bike, and the obesity rate's 45%. Conclusion, go ride. That's a great use of data. I love it. Mental health, another term that maybe we're growing out of or we're evolving to something else because unfortunately we have a tendency to look at these issues and say these are problems that need to be fixed. There's a problem with this child. We need to fix this child. That's really not right. The child may have an issue that he needs help or the family needs help, but we don't need to fix them. We need to help them. So lots of folks changing to childhood emotional, behavioral, and mental wellness. We talk about how can we do to increase your wellness, your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself. 11% of the kids had mental health issues in 2008. Wellness Alliance of Denton County is actually building a coalition around the whole mental health issue because they've never had that in their county before. They're actually following sort of a mantra of the mental health connection here in Tarrant County, which is no wrong door to the right care. It's all about making sure every kid that's identified with the behavioral wellness, emotional wellness issue gets to the right care. Absolutely awesome work. 2008, 8.8%, 7.2%. That's big enough that the population actually went down. Bullied at school stayed the same. Did not receive needed medical and mental health care, stayed the same. Experiencing a trauma stayed the same, and had self-esteem issues actually improved because they had fewer issues with self-esteem. So that seems to be pretty positive. So one of the issues with the whole issue of mental health was about access in 2008. And so these are the parents who said their child did not have a mental health diagnosis. And they said, 40% of them said it's very easy to get mental health care, and only about 5% said difficult. However, in 2008, the parents of the children that did have mental health diagnoses, look at that, 27% of them said it's difficult or very difficult to get care. So it was a situation of the parents who don't have kids with mental health issues didn't know the challenges to get the care. So we looked at it for 2012, and look what happened. These guys right here that were on the rail, on the fence, didn't know what to do, they all moved over in this side. This is the parents whose child has not been diagnosed with a mental health issue. So it went from 40 to 52%. But guess what? The same thing happened with those who had children with a mental health issue, but now it's more split. So about half went up the curve, so it went from 31 to 40, but look, it also went the other way, from 15 to 20. Okay? Can you spell disparity? I can't prove it yet, but I will before the month is out, that this is a higher income and this is a lower income group of parents. So you're seeing disparity in access to care, not disparity in mental illness. Any income, age group, race, ethnicity is equally at risk for mental health issues. But access to care, it's an unlevel playing field. So here's the distribution in 2008, and what happened in 2012? Down, 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 even, even, whoop, hood, up. Okay? Overall, it gives the appearance that we're doing better. Okay? Pretty encouraging. We need to find out what's going on there. And interestingly, if you geomap some of this information, this is, are you familiar with different types of mental health services available? Blue being familiar. You can see where the parents think they're more familiar, where they're less familiar, and then everybody's kind of in the middle where they're just kind of somewhat familiar. Again, this is an education opportunity for our parents. Questions we didn't ask in 2008, cyberbullying. 7% of the kids in our 6-county area have been cyberbullied. That's 5,000, almost 5,000 kids. We also didn't ask about the family environment because that plays such a role in mental wellness and self-esteem. 13% of the parents said they believed their child was harder to care for than other children. And I just threw this one in because I'm amused by it. 55% said they were angry with their child at least once in 30 days. Really? Really? At least once? I bet I set a world record. In fact, no way it could be just once. So there's actually more information behind that. So I just threw that in because we all need to feel good about parents. It's a learning experience for all of us. Safety from unintentional injury. 15.3% of the children were injured that required medical attention. Safe Kids, fortunately, under the leadership of Cook Children's, and Jenny's been involved with this for years, and our staff is involved with it, focused on child passenger safety, drowning prevention, and poison prevention. Celebrating their 20th year, actually, this year. 2008, 15, 11, went down. Population, down. These three, you might want to take with a grain of salt. Remember, these are parent-based surveys, so the parents said, yeah, our child's using his bike helmet, block away from home. Our child focus groups at the end of the survey are kind of like, yeah, Mom, as soon as I get around the corner, the helmet goes off because it's not cool. 2008, this was the distribution of those accidentally injured that required medical care. And here's what happened in 2012. Everything went down except Hood. Wise. Wrong county. Pardon me. That's right. That's right. In a rural area. Need some work. Need more work to figure that out. Again, familiarity with where do you get injury prevention services? Okay. Nice little pockets where everybody feels pretty good about it. A few pockets where people don't feel so comfortable. Mansfield, really? Okay, need to think about that. Safety from abuse and neglect. 5.5% of the parents thought their child had been abused. Fortunately, 2 of our coalitions are working on programs. In Hood County, it's Nurturing Parent Program and partnership with 211 for information referral. In Wise County, it's a period of purple crying. And if you're not familiar with the period of purple crying, it seeks to help parents understand that as if you've been a parent, you will all experience this to one degree or another. It's when the child starts crying and absolutely refuses to shut up regardless of what you do. And it goes on and on and on. There is no off switch. It turns out that's normal behavior. Okay? So the period of purple crying gives the parent, first of all, the information that it's okay, your child isn't weird, and you're okay, you're feeling the right things, you're not weird either, and here's some coping skills to help you get through this very normal part of the child's life. So, unfortunately, nothing changed, but so the population of abused children crept up. Here's the distribution. Wise again. Denton, Johnson all went up. Hood, our leader in 2008 at 15.6%, actually dropped a little bit. But it's still overall increased. Something we need to address. Dental and oral health, 8% of the children had dental problems in 2008. Fortunately, we have the Children's Oral Health Coalition and Save a Smile, again led by Cook Children's. These are initiatives we've been involved with for a number of years. Compared to 2008, more kids had dental exams in the last 12 months, and we're well above the national and state averages. Teeth cleaned in the last 8 months, did not receive all the needed dental care. And then, unfortunately, the parents still can't draw a good relationship between what's the impact of dental health on general health, and that prevention is really important. So we need to work on that, another education opportunity. Distribution by county and what happened. Down across the board, which is all good, because did not receive new dental care. It means they got more care. So that's good. Questions we didn't ask before, the detail. We just asked a very general question in 2008. We got much more specific in 2012. Fluoride varnished in the last 12 months. 55% of the parents said, yeah, that's happened. Dental work, 20%. Toothache, 4 or 5. Decay or cavities, about 11. So now we're able to fine-tune a little bit, hone in a little bit. And interesting, in contrast to the others, look at what happened. Everybody is very familiar with where they can access treatment. Pretty cool stuff. Other things we've learned, a couple of things. 2008, we asked about immunizations. This was kids' immunization rate at each age. It starts at 86%. This is a little misleading. It didn't make this huge jump. So it went up. 2012, very similar, except out at the end, it actually is a lot stronger. Well, what happened in 2007 back here, right before we started our survey? It's when they started requiring the booster vaccine before you could go to middle school. So it actually had a very positive effect. We also failed to ask about breastfeeding, which we all know is very important in the health of a child. Turns out our parents said 73% of the parents said their child had been breastfed or received breast milk. About a third of them actually made it to 6-month mark, which is the minimum recommended, if you can make it that far. So that's good. And then before you panic, this is in months. These aren't teenagers. This is, it's a 19-month-old. I made that mistake when I looked at it too, so that's why I'm warning you. Don't let your mind get ahead of where the numbers are. So this is the age at which mom and dad began supplementing breast milk with other food, okay? So the other cool thing we're going to talk about on October 9th is our new website. Given our technology problems, I actually have a plan B for this one if this doesn't work. Oh, no, there we go. We have completely redesigned the website, and I will tell you, for those of you that don't know, I have finished my 29th year with the organization and started working on 30. And one of the things that is a constant surprise to me is the creativity and talent of my coworkers. And our IS team has just done some really wonderful things. So this is our new website. I'm just going to take you on a really quick tour, and then I'm going to close out with what our action plan is going forward. So you can see it's very clean. The videos are about each of the health issues. You can go to health issues. The landing page will let you select which issue you're interested in. Let's say it's asthma. So, and each of the sites are very much the same. So for asthma, you get an asthma-specific video, special reports, and an area in which you can actually have interaction on the topic of asthma, if that's of interest to you, and follow not quite a blog site, but a discussion thread, if you will. So we're hoping that's going to help communities engage more in discussion about specific child health issues. You can also go in and look at the various counties, and the landing page will give you all the counties. Let's look at Parker. Parker County tells you a little bit about the county, what they're working on, a little bit of demographics. Mark was here this morning. I don't see him this afternoon, so it tells them who their regional health outreach coordinator is that they can get in touch with. As Jenny said, if you're interested in joining the coalition, it gives you the opportunity to do that here. And again, if you want to talk about what's going on in Parker County, you have that ability as well, to have that communication. So we're hoping over time that will become a common vehicle to communicate among people about what's happening in their respective counties. And that's all kind of boring. I mean, there's some other stuff about the team and some resources and take action, but the really cool stuff, of course, is, yeah, you guessed it, it's the data. And this is just stunning. For those of you who have done any research using data and gone to websites where data lives, you will know that you have to go through multiple pages to find your answer. And 2 weeks later, when you're writing the report, you go, oh man, I forgot to write down, and you go back and try to find it again, and you can never get back to the same place. It's just virtually impossible. So everything's going to happen on one screen, okay? So you find the question you want the answer to, and voila, there's the comparison 2008 to 2012. You have the ability to compare it by county, by city, age, gender, race, parents' education, household income. You have the ability to customize it, so if you just want to see how many kids in Arlington went to the ED, just that quick, it changed to Arlington. Now I know it went to Arlington because it tells me it's Arlington and the number of responses. Okay? For anybody that works in the ED, you'll be surprised to learn that 80% of our population does not show up in our ED. I know anybody that's been there knows that on any given night it feels like 100% of the population is there that night and their extended families with them. But the reality is we're only seeing about 20% of the population throughout the course of the year in our ED. So that's the data. So let's close this with, okay, so what? Again, data's great. I love data. I love numbers. But you know, this isn't about keeping me happy and employed, engaged, playing with numbers. And the reality is numbers don't mean anything unless there's a context or unless they tell a story. And even that's not helpful if you don't do anything about it. Okay? So remember the issues that our board said are our highest priorities? Well, over the past 2 years, I've been trying to work on what does 2020 look like. When we get to 2020, how will we know, back to the question, how will we know we've made a difference? So never accuse me of not being current, okay? I'm going to get back. I'm going to hold this over your head for a while. As of yesterday at noon, okay, our system board approved the following measures that we'll be looking at in 2020 to prove that we've made a difference in the lives of kids' health, okay? So for asthma, any kid that shows up in our ER will have it leave with a diagnosis of asthma, of course. We'll leave with an individualized asthma action plan. How are we going to do that? I don't have a clue. Fortunately, some of these I've got 8 years to figure it out, okay? That's one of them. But if you're seen in the ED with asthma more than 3 times in a 12-month period, we will ask to come to your home and do a site survey and identify triggers, home triggers. And if you can't, for whatever reason, get over those triggers or deal with them yourself, we'll find ways to help you. Okay? We'll also reduce the use of the ER for routine care of asthma. There's no reason to be in the ER with 1 or 2 very rare exceptions for asthma. Okay? And in those 1 or 2 rare exceptions, the ER is exactly where you want to be. But the others, you don't need to be there. If it's well controlled, if we accomplish number 1, number 3 will take care of itself. And then we'll also provide health literacy through the independent school districts about asthma. I just signed a contract 2 months ago with a company that provides school-based curricula for K through 12 that teaches health literacy by incorporating it into the routine curricula in schools. And right now it's been under consideration by the Fort Worth ISD and Arlington ISD. And over the next 3 years, I hope to have it rolled out through all 6 counties to all ISDs. So keep your fingers crossed, because that will be a large part of doing this. Why am I passionate about that? Because over time I've come to learn that the programs are important, but they're not the answer. Okay? The facts are important, but they're not the answer. What really is the answer is we all need to, I'm as guilty as anybody, we all need to learn how to make better, healthier choices. And there's nothing happening at the elementary age group that's teaching kids how to make healthy choices. The facts will always change. There'll always be some new study that comes out that says yes was yes yesterday, but today it's no. So how do I know how to make a healthy choice? Well, one way is to improve my health literacy. Provide weight management, activity, and nutrition programs. I'm almost embarrassed to say I wrote that one because I don't have a clue how we're going to do that. This is another one I'm glad we've got 8 years. We've got some things cooking that we think are going to work. It's just we need to get it all together. I am excited about one thing, though. Any kid that's identified within our system as being at risk, remember I was saying about the risk factors that you can assess now for as young as age 2? It really starts at age 8 for most kids. Any kid that's identified at being at risk by one or more of those factors will actually be put into a program. So if it's one risk factor, they may be put into a shared medical appointment program that we operate out of the Morris Innovation Center. If it's 2 or more risk factors, they may be put into the REACH clinic, which is Dr. Don Wilson's clinic that he's working on developing for specific multi-specialty interventions for kids at risk. So we're already pretty well along the way to that, having that piece knocked. And again, providing health literacy. For emotional and behavioral and mental wellness, if you're seen in a CCPN neighborhood clinic, you will be provided a behavioral health assessment. We're beginning to work on that with CCPN. We're just going to keep expanding that until we've got it through everybody. Hopefully, when we get to year 6, 7, or 8, we can expand beyond the neighborhood clinics. For now, we're going to focus on the neighborhood clinics and make sure we can make that happen. Dental and oral health. If any child in a neighborhood clinic will get a toothbrush each year and will be provided an annual dental check and varnish. The net result of that is, and for those of you that don't know, the leading outpatient surgery is dental surgery. And the majority of that work is children who have multiple dental issues as a result of not having preventive care. There's another group of patients that are there for medically indicated reasons that the only way they can have dental care is to be sedated. It has nothing to do with prevention. So we're going to eliminate all those that prevention would have kept out of the operating room. Okay? Again, glad we've got 8 years to do that. Unintentional injury, increased access to car seats and booster seats, access to car seat checks. And again, we're back to that literacy issue. It's absolutely critical. Best programming in the world doesn't work if I can't figure out in my own life how to put it into play. And then the one I'm probably the most excited about, because 3 years ago, I was probably the biggest critic of us trying to tackle child abuse. Not that it's not important. It is important. It's absolutely critical. It's a tragedy on a personal level for families that are involved. It's a tragedy at a community level. But how do you deal with it as a children's hospital? You're on the wrong side of the equation. You're only involved after it's already happened. Well, over 3 years, I've learned quite a bit, okay? And I think there are some ways we can intervene. And one of them is by providing positive, constructive help to parents that need to improve skills, particularly skills about coping and how to protect their child. This can't be about, you're a bad parent, you need to go to class so we can fix you. It has to be, you're an okay parent, you're struggling just like the rest of us, and if you want to be a better parent, we can help you change the game, okay? We can help you learn how to cope just that little bit better, or we can help make your child's life a little safer, be a little more protective. We can do that. And so I'm pretty pumped about that. So there's our next steps. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do with the programs. The good news is our system board of trustees approved all of those measures, sort of said, go forth and conquer and get back with us later. I know those measures will change over the next 8 years, to some extent, but that's the core we'll begin working with. There'll be 1 or 2 of them, I'm sure we'll go, what were we thinking, we can't do that? There'll be 1 or 2 or more that will go, well, how did we miss that? But that's the core we're going to start with. By the end of the next fiscal year, 2013, we will set target values for each of those so we know exactly how we're going to measure where we are in 2020 so we can come back and say, this is what we said we were going to do, this is what we did, this is what we accomplished. Okay? And then obviously, we can't do this by ourselves. There's no way. So we'll continue to grow and develop community collaborations. So I'd like to conclude with one final slide. It's a slide that I used the very first time I talked about CHAPS, and it is as true today as was true then, and that is this quote from Margaret Mead. And with that, I will tell you, thank you for all you do, and thank you for all your help, because without your help, we're never going to make this. But together, we're going to get there, I promise. Okay? Thanks.